Squidnova presents 30 Minutes of Diabolical, Volume 2, Session 3.
Is that by chance a dynastic track in our ears?
Dynastic? Fantastic.
Someone found the rhyming dictionary. And of course that means that this is your 30 Minutes of Diabolical, and welcome to it. In this session, the pursuit of guidance leads Team Diabolical to a crucial relationship, and why you may just find a dagger in your back.
A tuber-tape?
Next, we take a look at what characters hung epiphanies on us, and how it shaped the fiction that stimulates us.
Nothing more dangerous than a hanging epiphany.
Word. And finally, we give respect to some flesh and blood that drop knowledge along the way.
Inspired me.
Indeed. As always, we welcome you into the Diabolical Penthouse, where the electronic beats titillate, and nothing beats a good beverage by your side.
Amen.
And of course, there's the company. And that company starts with one Chuck Rendon. Chuck, how art thou?
I'm doing great. And as per usual, I have a feeling there's going to be a whole lot of doing, not so much trying in this session.
It's encouraging. And I'm a nocturnal human known as Curtis Harrod.
All right, sounds like synchronization is complete. Let's say we get started.
Let's do it. Chuck, it's safe to say that we've heard podcasts from as far north as Alberta to as far south as the Cape of Africa.
Yes, our ears have traveled.
They have. Then again, there's the Diabolical Penthouse, and what two men do up in there. Would you care to enlighten our new friends?
Well, lest anyone think all we do in the Diabolical Penthouse is sit and swig beer and watch Adult Swim, we do like to invite people in our conversations on popular culture, as well as whatever else is on our mind.
That's verified.
And there's a good chance we're going to drop some of our razor wit.
Like a shuriken.
Right. And give you some amazing atmosphere and immerse you in 30 minutes of Diabolical, give or take.
It's tasty. And Chuck, let us not forget about the generous third member of Team Diabolical.
How correct you are. With us again is King Night Owl. Mm-hmm. And anytime you hear him speak up, you can rest assured some serious knowledge was dropped for you in this session's show notes. So stay tuned for that.
I feel an energy in the penthouse that I've not felt for quite some time. But before we get to the topic at hand, there's some beverages being poured. Chuck, why don't you speak on that beverage?
Well, for me this week, I invited a brand new brewery into the penthouse.
A new friend.
And that's Bear Republic, as I'm enjoying a glass of their Apex Special IPA.
How's the beer taste?
Well, it certainly covered my bitterness quota because it's there in spades, but good glass of beer. And, these guys are located in Cloverdale, California.
Well, that's up north where I grew up.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually picked this up in Big Bear. Took it all the way back here with me.
Appropriate.
I'm enjoying it, but I'm curious. I'm seeing something purple over there. What do you got for us?
Purple indeed. Well, like when you have some hot numbers and you might be into gambling? Well, I've been riding Arizona tea, as you well know.
I do.
So I decided to press my luck and try some of their Grape Aid.
Grape Aid, you say?
Yeah, not a tea, just a grape-flavored beverage with quote-unquote natural flavors, if I can channel Dr. Evil when I'm doing air quotes. I'm not going to speak on the taste, but I think we can both say that the can is quite arresting.
Grape-tastic.
Yes, sir.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have some good beverages this session. So, hey, cheers to you, man.
Something along those lines. Cheers. Now, we have a topic that's been turning over in our minds pretty much all week, or for several weeks, because of a certain TV show, which we'll get into in a second. But we are jonesing for some dope. So, Chuck, to accompany
it is that time.
Our dope, let's go ahead and play a dope track from Jeps. What do you say?
Sounds good to me. And, I have to say, my dope this week is another film that
really?
I caught eyes on. Another recommendation from a friend. In this film, it's called The Battery, a zombie film.
Never heard of it.
There's reason for that because it never saw theatrical release. It was one of those. It was direct to video on demand.
Not always a good thing.
Not always a good thing, but in this case, it was more of the budget. It was a $6,000 budget. It was filmed by a cat named Jeremy Gardner. He's an actor. You probably haven't seen him in anything. He's more of an indie kind of guy.
Okay.
But really interesting how this film came about. He was doing an audition tape. Okay. So he wanted to make it kind of a dynamic experience. So he started filming like this little mini zombie thing, and he decided, hey, I like this. I'm going to make a full film. So that's how The Battery was born. And for me, it's an interesting take on a zombie film, mainly because there's maybe only, I don't know, a handful of zombies in the film. Most of it is the exposition between these two guys who are traveling together in the post-apocalyptic world.
There you go.
They're two baseball players. So more about the story is how they weren't really friends, or they didn't travel in the same social circles before the zombie outbreak. So how they're relying on each other, and there's times when they get on each other's nerves. So just seeing how they kind of cope.
Kind of a character study?
Yes.
All right.
There's a really cool scene towards the last third of the film where they're trapped in a car, and a lot of drama ensues in that. You have like this wall of zombies kind of surrounding the car, and there's this notion of how are they going to get out. The keys were lost.
Of course they were.
It's a very interesting psychological take on zombies, and I gotta say I enjoyed it for first-time filmmaker Jeremy Gardner. If you can get this on iTunes, I know it was released on DVD last September, but it's a little bit different take on the zombie film, and I actually liked it. So my dope this week.
Very nice. The last time we saw characters get trapped in a car was Cujo, and I can't say I loved that flick, but I will keep my eyes open for The Battery. Nice heads up.
It's kind of ironic that you didn't like Cujo, by the way.
It is. Truly is.
You, sir, what's your dope this week?
Well, my dope last week was a tweet, and at the risk of being redundant, this one's also a tweet that hit me today. And that's from one of the gents from the menagerie of Joburg, the podcast from out of South Africa.
Okay.
But he drew a picture of the enemy, Cobra Soldier. And we'll put the tweet in our show notes.
I did see that too. Very dynamic, I must say.
Well, anytime somebody draws a picture with you in mind, that's pretty cool, man. That'll make your day. Great drawing. It's in my tweets. Check it out.
Yeah, totally dope, man. Good stuff.
So it's safe to say that you and I are not going to carry the banner of the CW network too often.
To put it mildly, you are correct.
They have really struck a chord with many with Arrow. Kind of feels like Batman Light.
It's funny you say that. I actually held off on Arrow for the first 2 seasons. I didn't watch it. Mainly because it was on the CW, and I felt pretty burned by Smallville. I just couldn't take it after a while.
I think everybody did.
Right. So I purposely didn't watch the show. And finally, I broke down and I binged it over Netflix. Absolutely loved it. And so, of course, I'm enthralled with season 3.
Well, binging it may be the right way to do Arrow because of the jumps back in time, kind of like Lost, where you're jumping back to the island.
It's a good call, right?
But we're not here to talk about Arrow. Well, what's on our mind tonight?
Yeah, we're actually leaning more towards Flash, and there's an interesting character dynamic that takes place in that show.
Now, once again, Flash is a show that is enjoyed by a lot of different age demographics. It has something for, obviously, that CW.
It does. I mean, it kind of knows its core fan base, but at the same time, they've done a nice job of branching out to the casual, like, comic book fan as well.
They have thrown a lot of, for my taste, the universe is too tight. I feel like that everybody is a superhero.
Right.
And you're kind of just like, come on, guys.
You're suffering from that like Spider-Man universe where like everybody Spider-Man knows is like a villain.
And maybe I've just been blind to this my whole life. But watching The Flash on CW, it's a companion series to The Arrow. The Flash debuted on The Arrow. And they have done some crossovers which have worked very nicely.
Yeah, no, very true. I will give CW credit here, or whoever. I'm assuming Warner Brothers obviously takes the bulk of this, but they've done a great job crafting this TV universe.
And there's rumors that they're not done building kind of the Arrow Flash universe. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're hearing all sorts of rumblings that the Adam character, played by Brandon Routh,
did you see that still of him in his costume?
I did.
People were saying it looked good. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, it's funny. It does look a little RoboCop-ish to me, I'm going to say. I don't know. I'm not completely in love with it, but
I do not like it.
I will withhold judgment till I see it.
I'm not crazy about the character design, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that Brandon Roush can be an action type character. We'll find out. Maybe he'll prove me wrong.
I think he's going to be helped by the suit. I think that's going to make it a little bit more believable.
Do you see some wire work in our future? Is that what we're talking about?
We'll see, man. But I have to say, though, he's been pretty solid on Arrow. I will give him that.
The character dynamic you spoke of.
On The Flash, we have this sort of dynamic relationship between Dr. Harrison Wells and Barry, the Flash.
Right.
It's a funny thing because, Dr. Wells was responsible for giving Barry his powers.
Well, at least in the show, the origin is that kind of Star Labs explodes, and that chain reaction creates the Flash.
Right. As well as countless other mutants or metas.
But yeah, what do they call them? Metahumans?
Metahumans.
Everybody's got their own term now, just trying to avoid the word mutants or whatever.
Avoid that lawsuit, yeah.
Crazy. But Harrison Wells is a mentor to Barry and or Flash.
Right. Yeah, he seems to be the one that most understands what's going on with Barry. And as we find out later, it's for a very specific reason, because he has direct access to the future and he knows all about the Flash.
And well, this is in its first season, like the second half of its first season. We already know that Dr. Wells is kind of his nemesis.
Yeah, he's been revealed at this point to be, I guess they're terming him the Reverse Flash on the show as well.
Do you think that's a little early for a reveal? I thought that would be like the end of the first season type thing.
Well, part of me does think they revealed that a little too soon. But the other part, I feel they might be going somewhere with this. And it does create sort of this intriguing vibe with us as audience members, as we do understand that relationship and seeing how that unfolds weekly. It's a hook.
I agree with that. I feel like that the studio that's doing both Arrow and Flash has built up enough audience credit for us to kind of be along for that ride and not be too critical.
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely.
But that puts us in a strange place as viewers because we've seen mentors turn on their mentees, so to speak, in a lot of fiction. And a lot of times the viewers already know. It creates this kind of diabolical knowledge that we know.
Right.
We just don't know when the other shoe's going to drop.
Well, and it's usually a mentor-mentee relationship is a powerful one.
It is.
So when you twist that and the mentor actually betrays the mentee, it's almost more you expect the mentee to eventually maybe betray the mentor, but when it's the other way around, when it's somebody that you just drew all of your knowledge from, it's shattering.
Well, there's kind of like a father-type trust relationship.
Right.
We have Professor Wells, played by Tom Cavanaugh. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And he's a kind of a veteran of TV shows. He's done some romantic comedies, I believe, along
Providence.
the way. Oh, there you go. How do you feel about him playing this dual role? Do you feel like that there's enough evil? Can he carry the evil side of this role?
I've actually liked the way he's portrayed the character so far because I think he gives it just enough sort of creepiness in his delivery.
He is a little bit creepy.
That you buy into. You buy into that there's something shady about this guy.
I agree. In the more recent episodes have been a little more heavy-handed about it. Like you have ancillary characters kind of questioning his role.
Right. Well, and you even had Barry question him a couple times, but ultimately reverts back to that teacher relationship. So, of course, he gives him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and Wells is so integral to their whole ops. So, I mean, like, for them to finally reveal that he is the Reverse Flash, so to speak, that's going to change the entire show.
Yeah, so we're definitely being set up for a grand reveal, at least to Barry at some point. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
Well, there's a lot of mentor relationships in movies. It's almost a staple.
It is. No, absolutely. It's a classic story archetype.
Right. So let's start out with the kind of evil ones, so to speak, the mentors that turn on their students. Let's go there first, and then maybe we'll explore some other more playful ones.
I'm happy to throw mine out there first.
Please.
Because I think it's going to be a hard follow-up. But, you talked a minute ago how normally, we can see the evil mentor turning. We can see it coming, right? Or we already...
The viewer does, yeah.
And on that, right. In the case of my mentor relationship here, though, we didn't see that coming, at least initially. And I got to point us to Batman Begins. in the character of Henry Ducard.
You're talking about the Nolan verse, so to speak.
Absolutely. So Ducard, played by Liam Neeson. First half of the movie, he trains Batman or Bruce Wayne and,
right,
makes him become Batman, essentially.
The power of the purple flower.
Absolutely. Second half of the story, we see that it's revealed that Ducard is actually Ra's al Ghul.
That was a nice plot twist.
It was. Honestly speaking, for me, I didn't see it coming. So it was a nice reveal. Even though I thought his overall plot to try to destroy the city with the subway train or whatever was a little grandiose.
A little elaborate, yeah.
But nonetheless, I can appreciate that, and it certainly was a great reveal to Bruce as well, because he didn't see it coming either.
Well, I thought it was fascinating how, even though Bruce saved Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul viewed that as almost like a move of weakness. When he saved him from slipping off that cliff. And then later in the city when it's twisted.
No, absolutely. And the relationship between Ra's al Ghul and Batman has always been an interesting one, even in the comics. They almost have had this mentor-mentee relationship.
Well, Batman's gotten very friendly with his daughter. Well, Batman's world is complicated, to say the least.
There's a little character called Damian Wayne that would really speak to just how intimate that Batman got with Talia, but I digress. Ra's has always had this interesting sort of honor code or honor-bound mentality he follows, and we've even seen that in Arrow briefly this season so far.
Okay.
He sees that. He's always seen Batman as weak because Batman never takes it to the level that fatality.
The League of Shadows does not play.
They don't. So that certainly was one of the more intriguing mentor turns, evil turns, and cinema for me.
That first act, or maybe even going into the second, the training of Bruce Wayne,
right,
and kind of like on that ice shelf where it's a great mentor relationship.
Yeah, very iconic and certainly great storytelling to have it take place up in the mountains in the snow like that.
Agreed. And you can, people have reservations about the movies that followed. Obviously, there's some great performances. That first movie really set the table for an incredible Batman universe.
It did, and you looked at where the Batman film franchise was at that time. I mean, we were left with the Joel Schumacher's.
The Bat Nipple.
The Bat Nipple.
Yep.
Right. So obviously Batman sort of had a sour image as far as film went. So it was very vital this film hit, and it delivered.
I can say 3 words that'll give you nightmares. The Bat credit card.
Oh man, nice. But and I have to say too, I think this was the film that really showcased Liam Neeson as in that badass kind of role.
Did it get him the Taken franchise?
I would say it did get him the Taken.
Huh.
How could it not have?
Curious.
So, there you go. So that's my evil mentor relationship.
All right, it's a good one.
I'm curious. So what do you have? How can you possibly follow up Henry Ducard?
Well, there's this little guy named George Lucas, and he created this hideous character.
George Lucas, evil. You got me already.
Emperor Palpatine. We know him from the original trilogy, where he makes an entrance by stepping off of those incredible, majestic-looking shuttles, and you have Vader drop to a knee.
Yeah, I gotta say, by the way, too, we're talking about iconic scenes.
Yeah.
Like, visually, I remember when I watched Return of the Jedi in the theater as a young kid.
A young lad.
A youngling.
Yes. No. Go ahead, please.
I was just enthralled by that whole scene. It visually dynamic. You had like the red Imperial Guards.
To show force.
Absolutely. All the stormtroopers. It was just
was that the first time we saw the Imperial Guards?
It was, yeah.
And let's be honest, the Imperial Guard action figures were not easy to play with, but they looked good.
They did. And they did their purpose. You just wanted them standing there in the background, and that's all you needed them for.
But yeah, Emperor Palpatine, who, as we know, when it comes to Sith, there are always 2 of them, the rule of 2, and they're pretty much always trying to stab each other's back. It's not
true.
A trusting relationship.
It's almost like the Sith Master, he knows like his apprentice is going to turn on him at some point,
right.
So he has like backup apprentices out there.
As we've discussed, he has hands, he has eyes,
right.
He has lots of people waiting to step into the role.
There's all kind of body parts out there. Yeah,
it's a dog eat dog Sith world, and kind of when you go to Sith University on Korriban, or whatever planet they're working on.
Nice.
They pretty much train you that you're going to try and take your master at some point.
Well, it's part of the culture.
Right.
It's like that's what you do. Because there can only be two. So eventually your master gets old, time to take him out.
So if you take that knowledge and you watch the original trilogy again, and you watch those scenes where Vader is talking to Palpatine, and there's respect being paid, and they're, of course, master, whatever you want.
Right.
Underneath the mask, you know he's just like seething under there. Like, you know he wants the role.
Not to bring the prequels up here, but...
We have to.
But, Revenge of the Sith, it did end with that relationship pretty much forged. And it was very much forged out of anger and fear. Anakin realizing that he just possibly killed the love of his life.
As he was told, yeah.
As he was told. And so that just basically erased all the goodness out of him. So he was very much honor bound, I guess you could say.
Well, you can't go back from the acts that Anakin and eventually Vader did.
Right.
Of course, the writing and the portrayal of all that development was pretty tragic. And we had some really poor acting along the way.
Yeah.
So did not help it. But if maybe they'll remake the prequels one day and use like good actors and maybe some.
Right. Well,
maybe.
The prequels, I will say, though, really highlighted just how dubious Palpatine was. Because if you recall in Attack of the Clones, if you want to recall that.
Sure.
Count Dooku was his apprentice in that film.
I actually liked Dooku.
He's
one of the few characters I liked.
It was an interesting design. And, of course, Christopher Lee is Christopher Lee.
Sure, so, he can carry it.
Enough said there. But in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, we had Anakin take out Count Dooku, which was really very much in Palpatine's design because he saw Anakin being his new apprentice. So sacrificed old apprentice for new apprentice. So we really saw that sort of betrayal.
Well, Palpatine kind of has two modes, Puppet Master and Lightning Rod, so to speak.
Well, that fight with Yoda, too, it's just, he almost becomes like Snake-like when he...
Well, that's been scrutinized as well. And when Palpatine goes into, like you said, his snake voice,
right,
he's tough to handle. Because at that point, you're just like, I don't know who I'm dealing with.
Yeah, and then just don't get me started on that whole scene with him and Mace Windu.
No, I won't.
Over the top. We'll leave it at that.
That is my dark mentor. I do have a sidebar, and that is we don't know quite what would have happened in Tron Uprising. If the cartoon would have continued, what would have happened between Tron, eventually he becomes Ringsler, and Beck. And that's
a good call, man.
We might still see what happened, but I'm very intrigued on how that goes.
Now you're bumming me out all over again because that was really one of the relationships I looked forward to seeing because you already knew where it was going. Tron eventually became Rinsler, so we know,
it doesn't end well.
Exactly.
So hopefully we'll get to see that play out. A lot to chew on right there.
Yeah, I'll give you credit, man. I really didn't think you would come close to Henry Descartes, but Palpatine, that was a good choice. Nice.
It's hard to look past him.
It really is.
I feel like it's probably time for an interlude. What do you say?
That sounds about right to me, man.
How's that beer from Big Bear treating you?
I have to say it's carried me through this intriguing conversation on mentors so far. What about the Grape Aid? How's that going?
Well, I can definitely knock it, but we can both agree that I'm very alert and I feel good about life.
There you go, man. That's all you can ask of a beverage.
Let's go ahead and head to London and shine a light on this interlude. When we return, we'll get away from the darkness and talk about some good mentors. what you will. The soundscapes coming out of London are incredible.
Yeah, what a perfect song for mentors, too, as they bring out the light in us. Oh, yeah.
Glad you noticed that.
Yes.
Draper on point.
Good stuff.
I got to say, I enjoy talking about evil mentors.
Well, we're 30 minutes of Diabolical, so.
There's a second half of this conversation, and that's talking about some of the funnest mentors that we've encountered.
This is the good stuff, man.
It is. And I got a feeling that we're both going to take it back to the 80s, where we belong.
Well, I kick things off with the dark mentor, so I think it's only fair that you throw your light mentor my way.
Fair enough. And I'm going to be honest, I just decided this while the track was playing.
This is going to be interesting.
I'm going to take it to one of my favorite movies. 100 years from now, it's still going to be one of my favorite movies. And it's fairly unique because I'm going to have to explain this.
Is this Rufus from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
That's a hell of a good guess. I got to go with Weird Science and...
Oh my God, dude, I love it already.
The character the woman that they created, Lisa, who turns their world on its ear, but she does mentor them. It's kind of strange because they create her, but she teaches them kind of how to seize the moment, and I guess
she brings them out of their shell, yeah. So to speak, right?
So to speak. It teaches them how to shower with women, apparently.
Oh, brother, that's a great call, man, because it's a different kind of mentor. I think all of us young men could have used such a mentor.
How much would that have changed a young Chuck's life? I mean, let's be honest.
Total transparency here. After I first laid eyes on that film, I did briefly think about grabbing one of my sister's Barbies and seeing what could happen.
It did kind of lay out the logistics of how to create.
It really did.
Woman.
I'm like,
And your mind is kind of like,
kind of computer savvy. I think I could figure this out.
Well, and that movie stands up because it has one of the biggest actors of our current time right now in Robert Downey Jr., but back in the day, he played a villain because he was very obnoxious as an actor.
Right.
I don't know. Lisa, dude, she stood up to parents. She waved revolvers in parents' eyes.
Yeah, I mean, played brilliantly by Kelly LeBrock, and yeah, she was the cool chick that you wanted to know. Like, this was somebody you wanted in your life.
Well, that movie made her like the sex symbol of the 80s.
Oh, absolutely.
For kind of like that John Hughes.
Oh, man, when she comes out of the closet, you just see her in that low-cut shirt and just the smoke coming out. I mean, come on.
I love the movie.
Yeah.
I got to say my favorite scene in that movie probably is the jazz club. Just because of how it's nice. Just fantastic.
Oh, brother, I got to say, man, you surprised me. You pulled that one out, and
I did.
Man, good call. I'm almost ashamed that I had you go first, because how do I follow up Lisa?
I don't know. I'm somewhat privy because I've seen our show art. Chuck, what do you got for us?
Well, there was really only one choice for me. When you say mentor to me, there's only one guy that I think of, and that's Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid.
That's brilliant. Wax
on, wax off, right? I mean, it's just, yeah, he's the prototypical mentor, and gosh, if you're going to learn from anybody, such a small, diminutive guy, but you see him fight and nobody takes down Miyagi.
Well, he was kind of a live action Yoda, let's be honest.
Good call. Absolutely.
Because, I mean, if you're 20 to 30, you've done the crane kick. Right. Sometime, someplace, maybe in front of a mirror, who knows?
It's one of the all-time iconic scenes of any film, really, when you see him doing the crane kick on the beach. Yeah, well, I mean, dude, that image is ingrained in your mind forever.
Well, dude, and you can still see the Cobra Kai logo. I mean, I kind of want a shirt with that logo on it. I mean, the movie is, start to finish, kind of a cultural touchstone.
It was a masterpiece, honestly. It
That's
hit
a big
on,
word.
Yeah, it hit on everything it needed to hit, and just Miyagi, you walked away from that film. I mean, Pat Morta, after this film, just became a legend.
But okay, I'm going to hit you with some trivia just to guess your opinion.
All right.
Teaches him how to defend himself, gives him confidence, but he does show him one thing, gives him something. What is it?
Well, I don't know if this is where you're going with that, but for me, I got to go with the bonsai tree.
Oh, interesting.
Because that taught Daniel-san patience and, which, let's be honest, he was a hothead.
Okay.
So this really allowed him to cultivate. He came to understand that with time, beautiful things grow.
It's very zen of you, Chuck.
So-
I was going to go with the car because then he can entertain his girlfriend.
Okay, how practical of you. I like it.
No, but I do like to plant. Anybody who's had a garden or tried to raise plants, it's not an easy task.
No, it's not. So, and it was great. I mean, even with like the wax on, wax off thing, that's what I loved about their relationship. Mr. Miyagi would give Daniel these mundane things to do, but
Yes,
in
sir.
everything there was a lesson, and it was up to Daniel to really figure out what the lesson was.
Well, am I mistaken, or did Miyagi chopstick a fly?
He did. He did.
Dude, if you can do that, you can just drop the mic and walk away, because that's crazy. Dude.
Yeah. Like I said, such a little guy, but man, he had a presence.
We should be tying like a headscarf on right now. No. Some Karate Kid podcasting.
Nice. At least do some leg sweeps or something.
That may have been the strongest conversation we've ever had in the Diabolical Penthouse.
Oh
I'm not
man,
gonna
it was
lie.
certainly the most fun, man. Like
the 80s, man.
I loved well, yeah, of course we're all about the 80s. That's always a pleasant journey when we go back there, but talking about these mentors, like I really walked away. Like I wanted Mr. Miyagi in my life, and I really kind of took some lessons from him, to be honest.
And we both wanted Kelly LeBrock in our lives,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers to that. Absolutely.
to take a more heartfelt, is that the word, Chuck?
Yeah. It's not a word we typically throw around here in the Diabolical Penthouse. but-
Podcasts are supposed to be irreverent, opinionated radio, quote unquote. Chuck, there's probably been a person in your life that has spoken to you, taught you about life, the world is bigger than you are, etc. Who is that to you?
I've actually been lucky enough to have been graced with two different individuals.
Okay.
The first one really came early in life to me. It was my 4th grade teacher, actually.
Wow.
I don't profess to be a very religious individual. I certainly have a level of spiritualness about me,
I hope so.
and I directly correlate that to her because she really grabbed me when I was young and kind of taught me what it is to be spiritual and walked me through that path. And it was neat because our relationship pretty much lasted, up until, her passing a couple of years ago. And the coolest thing to me was in 4th grade, I made this little magnet with my picture on it for her and gave it to her for like Teacher's Day.
Okay.
She put that on her fridge, and I kid you not, she had it there the whole time I knew her. So, up until I graduated college, everything, I was on her fridge, which was pretty cool.
You
And
were always on her mind, Chuck.
there you go. So it was very cool. She would call me up every once in a while and just ask how I was doing. And if I had an issue, I could always go to her and she would give me some great advice.
Just really briefly, the passing of a mentor, is that a heavy blow? How did you feel about it?
I mean, not to get too deep here, but it happened pretty quickly after my grandma passed on. So there was a lot of emotions going on there.
Fair enough.
But definitely, she was a great lady, and she certainly had an impact on me. So,
And Chuck, just as a qualifier, you can get as deep as you like here in the Diabolical Penthouse. We're okay with that too. You mentioned another though.
I did. I actually had my high school psychology
There
teacher.
it is.
We touched on this last session. I am a student of psychology. I graduated with a degree in psychology.
Yes, you did.
So that should tell you directly how much this guy influenced me. Because prior to meeting him, my life's ambition was to become a doctor. That's what I wanted to do. That's where I was going. Met him. He completely turned my head around. Loved psychology. And he really got me to come out of my shell, so to speak. And so that's something I will always be thankful for. But another guy, he constantly, emailed me throughout college and just gave me advice. He would tell me, which courses he would recommend, what would take me further in life. So.
Do you feel that is one of the larger qualities in a mentor, is somebody who does not, so to speak, a lot of people are in your life for a chapter.
Sure.
Is it the people that recognize that you might need that guidance that make a point to stay in your life? Is that a mentor?
Yeah, I think that's one type of mentor. I think another type, even a mentor to me could be somebody that might only be in your life for like a month. Okay. But if they imparted some knowledge on you and you really walked away enlightened from that relationship, I think, you can't help but look at that as a
that label
mentorship.
sticks.
Absolutely. So those are my two mentors that kind of help define who I am.
this conversation might end up in his ears, respect is paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So who is your mentor?
Mine found me a bit later. I will say that I've always been a reader, but I had a finite source of knowledge that I would draw from. Most of them were Star Wars novels, I'm not going to lie.
Hey, Star Wars is life, man. What can we say?
The Thrawn trilogy stands up. We both know it does.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of lesser Star Wars novels. We won't mention Han Solo at Star's End or anything like that.
Yeah.
But my English lit professor in college, we played hoops together. That was kind of our entry point.
Oh, very cool.
And then he started kind of dropping some different books on me. One which became my favorite book, and that was Bright Lights, Big City by Jay McInerney.
Ah, great book, yeah.
It is. It's one, if you read it, I definitely recommend it. Maybe Night Owl will bless us with that. But he opened my eyes to a bigger world, and one that really enlightened me. So, I've not forgotten that, and he'll definitely hear this conversation. So shout out to him. Thank you, sir.
It's awesome, brother. I mean, that's all you can really ask for a mentor. I mean, to walk away with your world expanded a bit. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Often a mentor is somebody who has a family, has commitments. These aren't people with an abundance of free time.
Sure.
But they make time for you. And they give you genuine emotion and, guidance. I'm not going to forget that. It's a big deal. Obviously, this conversation is a very important one. Kind of Flash gave us that entry point.
That's a great thing about pop culture in general. There's always an entry point into something that's very personal with you.
Right.
And, hey, at the end of the day, I know that's why I'm here. So, it's good stuff.
Indeed. I want to know what happens to Flash. Reverse Flash. As the hour grows late in the Diabolical Penthouse, we just had a conversation about maybe the most important relationship outside of maybe a parent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Outside of family, I mean, it doesn't get any better than a mentor.
So with that in mind, Chuck, what's your diabolical takeaway?
Well, I almost want to rain on your parade and say weird science because you just
Yes.
lit my head up with that one. But I'm going to kick it back to Henry Descartes and the Batman Begins.
I like it.
Such a great role with Liam Neeson, and it was a turn that I didn't see coming, so very rarely does that happen. And I liked it, so good stuff.
Well, let me turn that around on you. You dropping the bonsai tree on me. I did not see that coming, and I like it. The Zen.
Got with my inner Miyagi on that one.
Indeed. And I guess we're talking about Twitter now. Is that right?
Usually the formula.
I am at 86 Cujo on Twitter, and I think, I'm certain Chuck would echo this, that if you're a follower and you're listening, hit us up, let us know. We would love to bring you into the Diabolical Penthouse as part of the conversation.
Absolutely. We love referencing those tweets.
Indeed. Chuck, please drop some personal knowledge.
You can find me at Romba on Twitter. So, hey, night or day, feel free to get me Twitter-pated.
That word is oddly appropriate, Chuck. Nicely done.
And if you enjoyed what you heard in this session, and why wouldn't you, we talked about mentors.
We did.
You can find us on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, as well as other platforms at this point.
Shout out to SoundCloud.
There you go. Quick search for 30 Minutes of Diabolical. You got us. Hit the subscribe button. Become one with Team Diabolical.
Let's just keep growing, guys. Why not?
There you go.
Expand.
Oh, let's not go down that road again. For all those hoots you heard from King Night Owl, make your way over to diabolical30.com under Volume 2, Session 3. You'll find our show notes, read them, level up.
I defy you to tell us that we don't have the sexiest show notes in the business.
There you go, man. Bold words, and I echo them. But now I think it's time to elevate the talent that make us sound so good on a weekly basis.
Let's do it.
And this week we got things started off with Prince George and his dynamic track Dynasty.
A somewhat mysterious character, but how do you not fall in love with that track?
Right, hey, good stuff, Gio. We loved it. Next, we went through our interlude with Draper, who comes to us from London. We love the UK.
You mentioned that was a perfect track for this session. Kind of fell into my lap. I think it's a great track.
They brought out the light in my life.
Check the show notes.
Next, we have to give a great shout out to Kaylin, who helped us get personal with our mentors in that great track.
It was a great atmosphere for a personal conversation.
Couldn't ask for better. And finally, we're decompressing to Cosmic Quest, a fellow Los Angelito.
Great to showcase local talent.
Absolutely. And I know he recently moved to LA, and he's loving that LA bliss, as he calls it. So great stuff.
Welcome to the madness, man.
Indeed.
And of course, we have our dynamic cover art. We have a beautiful drawing of Mr. Miyagi and Danielson. Nice selection. Great job, Chuck. I know you're feeling it. Talk about this art.
I am. You know, the art's by Christella Pelland out of Canada.
Indeed.
So great job. And yeah, I'm digging it, man. It really got my zen going. Good stuff.
Shout out to our friends to the north.
All right. I would say on that note, we're pretty much out of here, man. What a great conversation on mentors. Cheers to Bear Republic. Great glass of beer. I know you got some positive things to say about the Grape Aid.
Arizona carried me. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yes, good times, man. We can't wait to see you back here next week. We'll catch you later. Most of it is the exposition between these two guys who are traveling together in the post-apocalyptic world.
There you go.